when I see you dancing, I'm like, hola, 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 hola. With your move fancy, make me wanna hola, 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 hola. I got your attention, spending that moolah, 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 moolah. I'm a drop poppin', pocket, swola, 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 swola.
You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristadoulou.
All right, everybody, we are back. March 4th, 2021. It is Thursday. Beautiful day, trucking along through the NFL offseason. And let's just start off the show by saying, wow, there is a lot going on. Releases left and right the last few days. We have so much to talk about as far as people being taken off of teams, names that people didn't even expect. So a lot going on in the league. So we're going to kick things off with the question of the day because it rolls in right into my lead story for the show. It sounds as though we're getting ready for a pretty dark week in the NFL. We've been talking about this on the show the last few weeks leading into free agency as we were getting close to the end of the season with the Super Bowl. This has been a topic, honestly, since the beginning of this season with everything that's been going on. No fan attendance. Salary cap is low. It's projected at a floor of about $181 million. Could be slightly higher than that, but it seems like that's going to be roughly the area they're looking at, somewhere between 181, and I would be shocked if it crosses 190. If at its highest, it'll probably be 190. Big names are being cut. And we'll get into those names in a second, but I mean, a lot of big names being cut. So my question for you all today, aside from the people that have already been let go by their teams, what big names do you think are in jeopardy of being a part of the cap casualties that have already been on the chopping block so far this offseason? The free agency is 11 days away before teams are allowed to sign and pick up players. It's getting pretty crazy here. And we'll jump right into the first thing that we're going to talk about here that I think is worth pointing out. Diana Rossini on Twitter just yesterday tweeted this out saying that she just texted with an NFL head coach, and the head coach said this specifically: it's going to be a massacre next week all around the league with teams letting go of players left and right. We've already seen it with some big names. Kyle Van Noy was let go from the Dolphins. He was in his first year of a 4-year contract with the Miami Dolphins, so that's massive because that's very early on in the contract, and it was something that a lot of people didn't really expect. He's considered to be a great team leader, a great person to have in the locker room. He was productive on the field as well. I've seen that Dolphins fans are trying to say that they have someone in Andrew Van Gilkey that is like a good guy to maybe take his place, who's kind of like waiting in the wings for his opportunity to step up. I just feel that Kyle Van Noy has a lot to offer in terms of leadership that someone younger may not necessarily have yet at this stage in their career. So having someone like Van Noy, who's a locker room leader, someone that, younger guys can look up to let go was just shocking. On top of that, Henry Anderson has been let go. I mean, I got a list of people here: Buster Skrine, Golden Tate, Kyle Rudolph was let go from the Vikings, David Mayo, Mark Fields, Josh Hill, Jared Cook, 2 tight ends from the New Orleans Saints got let go. Brandon Williams of the Houston Texans, not the Ravens, the Houston Texans, was released. I'm very there's a couple other people as well, but I'm very curious as to what other big names we're going to see. But it's been an absolutely insane kind of lead into the free agency with these names being dropped and having something like this being said by coaches that are expecting even more big names to possibly be let go, people that are only 1 or 2 years into long-term deals. We are in for a whirlwind of an offseason, and I don't feel like I can stress that enough. A lot of shocking names that are potentially going to be let go in the next, week or so. Again, we have 11 days till the free agency frenzy starts, and who knows at this point who's safe and who's not safe. I mean, even people that were semi-productive seem like they're getting let go. So who knows where this goes out. I'm going to just segue real quick and just jump out to some breaking news that I'm seeing come in right now. It sounds like the Pittsburgh Steelers have re-signed Ben Roethlisberger. Literally, as we are going live on the show, has re-signed Ben Roethlisberger to a deal. So it sounds like Ben Roethlisberger is going to be in Pittsburgh. I'm going to see if I can pull this up real quick. This just came up. I want to see if I can find anything about that. So the Steelers tweeted out literally 4 minutes ago, we have signed QB Ben Roethlisberger to a new contract. Do we have any details on the deal? It looks like nothing has been said in terms of deals. I'm going to pull up Twitter just to have this up here so we can look at that. I'm curious to see what the money is going to be for that. That was a big conversation that we were having going into the offseason, was what was going to happen with Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. So some pretty breaking news at that. Exciting to see that Roethlisberger is in fact going to be back in Pittsburgh next year. That was kind of something that I expected to see happen. So good for him. Glad that the Steelers and Roethlisberger were able to figure out, the money and everything like that. In my opinion, Ben Roethlisberger is the quarterback for them for at least the next season. They need to figure out what's going on with Dwayne Haskins and maybe someone else if Haskins isn't the answer. I felt like letting go of Ben Roethlisberger was probably not in the best place for them. Moving on, though, as far as releases go, a person I failed to mention, but the reason I failed to mention is because Thomas Davis has been released by the Washington football team. This happened yesterday as well. He is no longer a part of the team, and he is actually going to be retiring. Davis is a 15-year vet in the NFL. He was a big piece in the Carolina Panthers defense back in 2015 when that team went 15-1 and ended up losing to the Denver Broncos, led by Peyton Manning in Super Bowl 50. He announced on his Instagram that he plans to sign a one-day contract with the Carolina Panthers so he can retire as a Panther. Thomas Davis is somebody who, he was an absolute freak of an athlete. He ended up having a really bad injury, midway into his career, and then it ended up turning him into more of a very smart, very efficient football player. His stat line speaks for itself: 29 sacks, 859 tackles, 18 forced fumbles. He's been a pro's pro, fantastic player. So shout out to Thomas Davis for having such a great career. Congratulations on 15 successful seasons, a decade and a half in the NFL. The average lifespan of an NFL player, of somebody that just makes the roster week one of a season, is typically about 3.5 years or so. So to be able to do that for 15, congratulations to him. Celebrate for him. Job well done on his career. Moving on forward. As far as other offseason things go, we have a lot of trade rumors and things like that going on that involve the Patriots, the New York Jets. We also have things with the Las Vegas Raiders. There's a lot going on as far as news. We'll start with the New England Patriots first, though. Stephon Gilmore has been rumored to be on his way out of New England. He is 31 years old. He's on the final year of his contract, owed $16 million in cap space for the New England Patriots this next season. A lot of people are under the assumption that that's just a very large cap figure, and because he's on the final year of his deal, the Patriots are one of those teams that, they like to get anything that they can out of the players they have with time left. The Patriots are not really a team to just let people walk into free agency. So rather than maybe not re-signing him, because he did have a down year, if I'm looking at the numbers correctly here, he only played 11 games due to injuries and COVID-related issues. And on top of that, he only had one interception and one forced fumble. So not quite the all-pro defensive MVP that he was a season ago. Down year for him. And I think at 31 years old, the Patriots might be thinking, okay, this is maybe, he's on the backside of 30. Cornerback is a position where, once the athleticism starts to go away, you start to kind of lose it a little bit. And it's a very hard position to keep up with without that athleticism. So look for Stephon Gilmore to potentially go. It sounds like a lot of people think it's a done deal, that he's probably not going to be a New England Patriot next season. I'm curious to see what happens to him. He's a 2-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler. I think he still has a lot to offer for a team. I think just in terms of how New England's kind of structure works in their system, they usually try to get what they can for players on the final year of their deal. I'd be surprised if they just have him play out his contract and let him walk, because I feel you could probably still get maybe even a third, second round pick despite the down year. He is coming off just 1 year being removed from an MVP season at the defensive position. So, they might not get a first rounder or something he might have been worth a year or two ago, but he is still valuable to some sense. Just a couple seasons ago, over the last 2 seasons before this pass, he totaled 8 interceptions through 2018 and 19. So, he does have the track record for being a lockdown cornerback. Should he be able to maybe return to some sort of form, it'll be a good value for some of their team if they trade a second or third for him. Beyond that, the Jets have officially made Sam Darnold available via trade. This is the first time since the Jets drafted Sam Darnold a few years ago that he is actually available to be moved from the team. Joe Douglas, the Jets GM, came out and said himself, I will answer the call if it is made for Sam Darnold. Very curious to see what ends up happening with this because the Jets are picking very early in the draft. They do have an opportunity to get someone like maybe Zach Wilson, Justin Fields. So if they do decide that, Sam Darnold just isn't the fit and they should move on, good opportunity to maybe get some picks. There's a lot of people around the league who feel like Sam Darnold was just kind of wasted in the system. A lot of people point to Adam Gase, and then they say, look what happened to Ryan Tannehill when Ryan Tannehill was let go. So, or not let go, but left the Titans and got out of that whole Adam Gase, or left the Dolphins, going to the Titans and left that Adam Gase system that they had over in the Dolphins regime. So curious to see what he ends up going for. He was 2-10 as a starter last year, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 2,208 yards. Not necessarily a great year, but again, a lot of the focus seems to be that he just hasn't had anyone around him. Their lead back is Frank Gore. Le'Veon Bell left a little bit ago. They let go of Robbie Anderson as a wide receiver just this past offseason prior when, he ended up going to the Panthers. So, I mean, you don't really have a team around Sam Darnold. Their offensive line isn't great. Adam Gase is I don't know how Adam Gase got one recommendation from Peyton Manning a few years ago, and since then has just been getting head coaching gigs. And I think at this point he would be better off not being a head coach and maybe moving to the offensive coordinator position, or maybe something along the lines of maybe a quarterbacking coach. I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like a lot of people are pointing to Adam Gase and that system around Darnold and thinking, Darnold could pull in like a second round, third round pick, something like that, which, I mean, Darnold's still young. Could you potentially get something good for him if a team really wants to, get somebody that's already in the league, who's already had the, let's say, like the slowdown effect of being in the league for the last 3 years rather than pulling in a rookie who needs to adjust to the game and everything? Sam Darnold could be good somewhere else. I for one, am on that side where I'm very curious to see how he would do in a different system with more structure, a better, receiving core, a running game, a better offensive line. I'm very curious to see how he was, because a lot of people consider him to be very, very good when he came out in the draft. So, it would be unfortunate if, this is really what his career was, is, he kind of burned out on the Jets and just never amounted to anything, because when you look at the Jets track record at quarterback for the last however many some odd years, there's really nobody outside of Joe Namath that you can really name of importance besides like Chad Pennington in the 2 years Mark Sanchez took them to the AFC Championship on the back of that, awesome defense that Rex Ryan put together. More trade news, though. This is per Ian Rappaport. He reported from an anonymous source that the Las Vegas Raiders have had internal discussions about potentially trading tackle Trent Brown. So this is interesting because this is somebody who was, just a couple years ago signed a really big deal with the Raiders. He's a former 49er and Patriot, somebody that the Patriots ended up trading for and then letting go. He's someone that the team considers to be one of the best tackles in the league when he's healthy. But last year, he was limited to only playing, 5 games due to conditioning issues, injury issues, and COVID. So there's a lot to say about maybe his motivation, or if it really was just the illness and then carrying things over from that, what's going on. There's a lot of question marks on that. But I mean, when you look back to the season prior in 2019, he made the Pro Bowl allowing only 1 sack in 326 pass blocking attempts. So, I mean, he was there and he really tried his best. And, he did great that year, but that was the only, and he was still limited to 11 games. So it's like he was playing a really, really strong tackle position, doing a really great job. But unfortunately, it just seems that injuries and conditioning and that sort of stuff is really kind of hampering his career. And it's unfortunate to see that. I'm curious to see where it goes. He's 27. So, I mean, he does have time to maybe, change course. Hopefully the injury bug can, let go of him and, unrelease its bite that it seems to have on him. He still has 2 years left on the 4-year deal that he signed, and he's due $14 million in cap space. So not a ton of money, but a fair amount. When he signed his deal, I believe he was considered the highest paid tackle at his position. So curious to see what ends up happening with Trent Brown. Hopefully he's able to maybe, fix his conditioning issues. Maybe, the injury bug will finally let him go, and then we'll be able to see what happens from then on forth. Moving on, though, beyond the massive amount of releases and trade rumors for the offseason, the NFL Scouting Combine is going to be coming up here in a couple of weeks. It's not going to be an in-person combine at Indianapolis like they normally have. It's going to be a little bit different. Rather than having all these in-person workouts, it's going to strictly just be kind of like medical examinations, interviews through Zoom. The actual in-person workouts are going to be held at the players' schools themselves. The NFL is working with them to make sure that they are able to film their pro days as adequately as possible throughout the entire country. They don't want any school to feel that, because, we only have one recruit, we're not getting an opportunity. Because when you look at the set list, Ohio State leads the way at 14 recruits being invited, 12 from Alabama, 11 between Notre Dame and Georgia, Florida with 9, and then LSU and Michigan at 8. Those are the top 5 schools with the most amount of recruits being invited to the combine this year. And again, the NFL is working with them to make sure they have the camera crews and everything to be able to make sure that all the teams get the tapes and everything like that. And no school feels like they're being, kind of given the short end of the stick with that. I'm curious to see how the combine works this year. We're going to have to really look at the pro days this time around. I've never been one to really watch pro days. I've always been a big combine person. I'm a big fan of that. I've always loved watching all the college recruits come in and kind of show off their, their skills and whatnot and all the drills that they offer there. I guess the NFL is going to be coordinating specific drills. They want specific things done for every single player that was invited for the combine. So I'm curious to see how this whole thing shakes out. If because like the combine was always on the NFL Network. So I'm curious if they're going to air the pro days on the NFL Network, if there's going to be, if there's going to be tape that's reviewable for everyone to see. Is it just going out to coaches? How accessible are the pro days going to be to like general audiences? Because I know that fans, I'm sure, are going to want to see that. I was disappointed when the combine was, when the combine was canceled. So I would like to see some sort of, avenue opened up for even just the general public to be able to look at that stuff, because I would love to be able to watch myself personally, and I know a lot of other football fans would be as well. And speaking on the combine news, Dwayne Eskridge, he's from Western Michigan, came out the other day and has staked his 40-yard dash claim. This man has come out and said that he plans to run a 4.2 40-yard dash. I'm very excited to see how this turns out. That's a bold claim. For those of you that don't know, John Ross, he is currently a Cincinnati Bengal. I believe people are projecting for him to be gone from the team after this offseason, but he is the current record holder at 4.22 seconds. Chris Johnson, formerly of the Tennessee Titans, holds the second best record at 4.24 seconds. So some very fast players who put up some awesome combine numbers already that he has to beat. 4.2 is obviously a massive, massive milestone to reach. The only person who has ever been said to run something faster than that, that's recorded at the NFL Combine, and it was by hand time, not electronically, is Bo Jackson, who was rumored to have recorded a 4.21, which is obviously much quicker than anyone else behind him. I think the NFL doesn't actually consider it the record, though, because it's just a hand time and not an electronic time that was recorded for it. So John Ross is the perennial record holder as far as that goes. But NFL Scouting Combine, even though it's not necessarily exactly what it normally is, I'm excited to see kind of how this turns out and what it becomes with the pro days, as opposed to it just being a giant event that they hold in Indianapolis every year. Again, I really, really hope that, someone like Dwayne Eskridge, Western Michigan, he's able to put on his performance in front of as many people as possible, whether he runs the 4.2 or not. But just the fact that, he's trying to make some buzz on his name. He had a really good standout performance in the Senior Bowl practices. Hopefully, with that, and then him throwing this out there for teams that, more eyes will be on him, and that Western Michigan will be able to, showcase him on a big platform, because I would love to see him go for the attempt on that. It's a bold claim, and I would want to be able to watch him attempt it. And then last but not least, just a little mention for the Fan Controlled Football League. For those of you that do not know, the Fan Controlled Football League is a league that is being aired live on Twitch every Saturday night. The games are going to be at 8 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. The games are condensed into about an hour long. A lot of fan-controlled aspects in terms of play calling, drafting players, things like that. Just last week, they had the very first fan review. I guess a player was stopped, just short of the goal line on 4th down. And the fans were able to confirm or unconfirm whether he was actually stopped short of the goal line. So pretty interesting what they've got going on there. The final games of the season are this weekend. The Glacier Boys, who are 1-2, are going up against the Wild Aces, who are also 1-2. And then the Beasts, the only undefeated team in the league at 3-0, are going up against the Zappers, who are 1-2. The Zappers, if you did not know, they home Johnny Manziel, and also just who signed over this past weekend was Josh Gordon, who's an indefinitely suspended wide receiver in the NFL due to a number of different issues. He will be playing for the team hopefully as soon as this week. That was what the Zappers came out and said just a few days ago. So I'm excited to see if Josh Gordon gets to make his debut. Excited to see how that goes down. Can Johnny Manziel and the Zappers take down the undefeated Beasts? We'll have to kind of tune in and see what happens there. But again, that is 8 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, only on Twitch. If you don't know what Twitch is, it's basically like a live streaming platform for video gaming that has turned into more than just video gaming. There's a lot that goes on there. I know people do watch-alongs for games. You know, there's also like live music stuff done on there, and obviously the gaming streaming. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on there. Outside of that, though, that's pretty much everything I got for you guys as far as news goes. We're only about 21 minutes into the show. There's not like a ton of news going on. I will share with you guys, more information on the Facebook page and on the other social media pages as far as like contract news for Ben Roethlisberger. That just came out. I'm very curious to see where that ends up going. On top of that, as far as releases go, as people keep getting cut, I'm sure we're gonna have a lot more to talk about going into next week. If this source NFL head coach that told Diana Rossini we're looking at a massacre of releases next week, we're gonna have a lot to be talking about next Monday and Thursday. Free agency frenzy starts in about 11 days. So March 15th is when that kicks off. Gonna be pretty crazy to see where some of these big names go. If there's gonna be as many people released as they're saying, I'm excited to see the player turnover. I love seeing, big name players in new uniforms. We also, keeping an eye on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. If Russell Wilson's going to be going anywhere. So a lot that we're just kind of watching and waiting to see. And I don't want to just sit here yammering on about, top 10 lists and who I think are going to be free agents. I'm bringing you guys the news, what's actually going on and what's actually happening in the league. Without all that, though, just one more reminder of the question of the day. What big names do you think will become of the cap casualties that we have coming up? There's a lot of big names rumored. Von Miller is somebody that might potentially not be a Denver Bronco next season. There's some issues going on with him off the field. And on top of that, he's owed a lot of money. I'm very curious to see if Von Miller ends up getting released. That's somebody who I wouldn't mind seeing switch teams. I don't think the Denver Broncos are really going to be in contention for a title anytime soon. So I'd love to see him maybe head off from the Broncos and go somewhere that's going to be a contender. As a Colts fan, I would love to see Von Miller playing on the Colts. I think we could use somebody like him on the edge rushing the passer and just have him strictly play D-end. I know he plays outside linebacker, but we have enough covering linebackers that really we could just stick him right on the edge if Justin Houston isn't going to be there, and he could just straight go after the quarterback plan and play out. But other than that, just remember to check out our social media pages. We're up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I post various things from day to day as we go through. Facebook's probably where I'm the most active on that page. I try to keep up with all the really important updates and things like that. My Twitter and Instagram, not so much. My Instagram's more of like me and my life and kind of just like what I have going on as opposed to just the sports stuff. And then I'll randomly post about anything important if I think it's, worth sharing with others. But other than that, my name's Ethan Husadulu. I appreciate you all for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will catch you all Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, same place. Have a good one, everybody.
When I see you dancing, I'm like, hola, 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 hola. With your move fancy, make me wanna hola, 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 hola. I got your attention, spending that moolah, 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 moolah. I'm a drop top in pocket, swola, 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 swola.
You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Husadulu.
Swola, 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 swola.